Hello, citizens of the Imperium, and welcome to Comics with Friends, the bi-weekly podcast where two best buds talk about comics. We talk about what we like, don't like, and tell a few jokes along the way. I'm joined by my dutiful and faithful co-host, Ethan. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I know you've had a rough week.
It seems like every week's a rough week.
Yeah, I know.
If I sound weird, I'm hoping I'm healed enough to where it doesn't come across on the recording. If I sound weird or I talk a little bit slower, it is because I just had wisdom tooth surgery, and they pulled all 4 of my teeth and fucked me up pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
And your sleep schedule's all
my
fucked.
sleep schedule's all kinds of fucked. But yeah.
So
I'm here.
I'm gonna be carrying the energy for today. That's fine.
I'm here.
I'll yap a lot. But anyway, today we are in the grim darkness of the far future where there's only war, and we are talking about the Marvel-made Warhammer 40K Sisters of Battle comic, which is written by, and I'm going to butcher this name 100%, Torun Grunbeck. And the art is done by Edgar Salazar, which I swear sounds so familiar that we covered 100% for a comic on this podcast before. But
yeah, I tried looking him up and seeing what comics he's done. He's primarily done Marvel, and I can't find what he's done because that name does sound familiar to me too.
I don't know if it's something I read on my own time or if it was something we covered on the but I swear to God that name sounds so fucking familiar. But
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe someone knows and remembers. Who fucking knows? But anyway, like I said, this is actually done through Marvel, which was a surprise.
Very surprising.
We were playing D&D, and I think after the fact, we were like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but there's 2 Warhammer comics on the Marvel Unlimited app.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And he's like, well, which one do you want to do? Marnia's Calgar or Sisters of Battle? And I said, look at me. What do you think? So we are doing the Sisters of Battle, which is about 5 issues. Mm-hmm. It's a short, sweet kind of story. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing crazy.
They're basically like limited series. It's kind of weird to say a little bit of history. There's going to be a little bit of backstory as well. I guess little bit of history for those of you who do not know what the Warhammer universe is. It is a science fantasy setting that was created by Games Workshop, a British company that is set in the 41st millennium, the year 40,000, all that stuff. And it takes place in an alternate timeline where humanity has expanded to the stars and has colonized millions of planets and is spread thin across the Milky Way galaxy. And there is numerous events throughout the history of mankind that has seen them go through strife and greatness. And one of the big monolithic figures in the setting that kind of perpetuates a lot of stuff is the Emperor of Mankind, who is essentially the leader of the race of man. There is a lot of history that goes into Warhammer that sadly I just cannot get into today, but a lot of stuff has happened. Mankind is divided, not only physically, because there are things in the universe that kind of splits the Imperium of Man apart from each other, but mentally and I guess religiously as well. Because there are also humans who have kind of rebelled against the Imperium and do not believe the Emperor of Mankind is who he says he is, and tend to side with more chaotic forces in the universe, such as chaos gods and demons. Mm-hmm. But that is a whole lot of history I can't really get into. There is so much stuff with the Warhammer universe. Yeah. There are the race of man and all of their factions. There are the armies of chaos and all of the sub-factions that go into that. And there are the races of Xenos, who are their own factions that want to see the galaxy shaped in their own way. And it is a massive expanding universe that has so much lore to it and so much history. I mean, in the Black Library series, which is their version of just like novels that all take place in the same universe, there are over 600 books.
Yeah.
It is absolutely crazy. And maybe
And
one day,
a lot of it is dedicated to the Horus Heresy.
yes, which is a massive civil war that humanity went through in the year, or in the 31st millennium, 10,000 years before the current setting. And that is something that we will 100% go into eventually. But that is a book series that has over 60 books just in the main story.
And it's not linear. It's like the first 3 books are linear.
Yeah.
And then everything else is
like an offshoot.
Yeah.
And then like there's like a main story that you can follow, but you're missing context if you don't read everything.
Well, there's the famous like graph.
Yeah.
You know,
dude.
Of how, the read order.
Graph, I call that a fucking spider web.
Yeah.
That shit's crazy.
It's like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing about Warhammer that I found is because I've only gotten into it recently because of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to read some of the books and stuff like that. And I wanted to see like the read order because I'm used to very
linear stories,
trilogies, whatever.
Like the Legend of Drizzt or what is it?
I mean,
called? The Seven Virtues, like those kinds of stories, very linear.
Was a big Percy Jackson fan back in the day. But yeah, so I looked and saw that graph and I said, ha! Fuck that.
Yeah.
And just now I just read books that look interesting.
Yeah, just before we get into like personal like history with the franchise, I will say as like a side tangent, Warhammer as a hobby is really like it's very personal for me as an individual. It is such a great hobby. It is my favorite hobby that I partake in for many reasons. But as a universe, it is very difficult to get into. Yeah. Like there's no good starting point. Like in my personal opinion.
And also if you're looking for like classic storytelling like things in the sense of
like a hero's journey.
Yeah, good versus evil, you're not finding it here.
No, because the thing with the Warhammer universe that a lot of people have to understand is that everyone is somewhat bad. Yeah. Now, obviously, we get some really nice stories where you see good kind of like triumph over that. Yeah. But it's not a conventional idea of good.
The best way I've heard it said is that everyone is evil, but you still have protagonists and antagonists. Yes. So like as a person consuming Warhammer, whether it be mainly like narrative stuff, whether it be stories or like books or games or comics in this case, it 100% everyone is bad.
Yeah, everyone does bad things in this.
But you root for the protagonist of the story because that is what you are connecting yourself to the world through. Yeah. But like you said, there are, like when we say everyone is bad, like we're talking like more macro. Yeah. Like there's good people within this setting, but there's a lot of bad happening around it.
Right. Yeah. I will say for people who are not familiar with Warhammer, a good video I always recommend people go watch, or a channel I recommend people go watch for getting into Warhammer, is a very big YouTuber who definitely does not need a shout out from people with like double-digit subscribers. But Bricky is great. He has multiple videos for the Warhammer universe where he explains not just the factions, but also the timeline, the how the factions work on the tabletop, all that kind of stuff. It's really good. His videos are super in depth.
Yeah, they're slightly outdated.
They are because he made them when 9th edition first started.
But also another good one is Wes Hammer as well. He does
Wes Hammer's perfect. He does so much lore, or like he covers so much lore in the franchise, and it's great. He's very in depth and thorough. There's so many good YouTubers that you can go watch, and then obviously there's the hobby aspect of it, which is my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, you're the painter of the front group.
I am. I'll post some pictures of stuff that I've painted recently. I don't really like showing off my artwork.
I think you should. I think you do. I think you're humbling yourself, and I'm gonna wet my lips and glaze you a little bit, but you do a really good job. I mean, obviously better than I could do, but I think you should be proud of your work. I love you, big boy.
Thank you. I love you too. I mean, I'm proud of the stuff that I do, but I always feel like I'm bragging when I show off my artwork, and
that's fun.
But just a little bit of personal history before we get into this. I know we're kind of running long on the intro, but
I mean, it's a short story.
Yeah. Warhammer is very personal to me as an individual. I'm a very social butterfly. I'm a very social person, obviously, which is very funny because our entire social group is just introverts. I think I'm the only extrovert in our entire friend group.
I can be extroverted.
You can be, yeah.
More so when there's been like alcohol involved, but
you're very extroverted when you're around people you can be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And
100%.
It brings out that that goofiness that we all love in you.
Yeah.
But for me, Warhammer, I kind of got into by mistake, and I am actually a DM. We're both DMs for our own D&D campaigns. Obviously, you're a player in my campaign, and then you have your own group that you do on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And one day I was just kind of at my local comic book store that I always frequent, and I'd been going there since I was 15. I'm about to be 27. I feel old.
Look at me, about to be 29 this year.
Yeah.
So
actually, I've been going there for way longer than that. Because I was in middle school when I started going there.
Yeah.
That was back when they were at their first location. They're at their third location now.
Yeah.
But either way, that's a different story. And I was just looking for models to do some type of campaign mission or whatever for D&D. And I went over to the Age of Sigmar section of their, store. And the owner of the shop, who I'm actually friends with, like outside of that, he was telling me about it. And he was like, oh, yeah, it's cool if you just want to use them for D&D. I recommend you get this. And I was like, okay, cool. So I bought some Night Haunt models, which are essentially like undead ghost type guys. You've seen a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I painted it up for D&D, and everyone liked it. They thought it was a cool model. Well, actually, I didn't paint it. I opened it, and I was like, this shit's like unbuilt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know I had to fucking like paint this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I might as well paint it.
Yeah.
And so that went on the back burner. And I did a little bit of research. I bought some like basic paint. I was like, well, if I'm going to paint it, I want to like at least do something decent, and I want to start something like simple. So I bought a few like furniture crates that D&D was selling that were unpainted. And I was like, I'll paint these. It's one fucking color. I can do it.
Yeah.
Painted those up. Those were my very first models I ever painted. I found out how to build models and what I needed to do to paint them. I don't even think I used primer on my very first model, which is not recommended. Painted it up, and I was like, cool. This is cool. Mm-hmm. I like this. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to figure out how to get into this. And I did a little bit of research on the AOS factions, and I was like, man, everyone really likes these Stormcast Eternals or these like ghost people. I'm going to do something that I don't see a lot of people do online. I got into Khorne Demons, and I bought 2 or 3 of the start collectings, which was kind of crazy to say because those things used to be like $80. And now they're like 160. That is one thing about Warhammer. Yeah. That is one thing about Warhammer is that it's not a cheap hobby, at least when you first get into it.
At least the tabletop version of it.
Yeah. I got into it. I made a lot of friends at the comic book store who played AOS. Well, a lot of those friends also played 40K.
Yeah.
And I had zero interest in it. In our friend group, everyone knows that I much prefer fantasy over science fiction. You guys know that. Lord of the Rings is my favorite like story of all time. And obviously D&D. I have a D&D tattoo. Yeah. I love D&D. And I was like, well, everyone keeps telling me to get into this. And they told me that demons are actually like cross-compatible. And I was like, well, fuck it. I'll just spend $30 on a codex, because this was like the end of 7th edition, beginning of 8th. And I was like, fuck it, I'll get this codex. If I don't like it, it's not like I wasted any money, because it's just one thing. And I played my first game of 40K and I fell in love with it. And I was like, this is cool, because it had stuff that AOS didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome. And I really got into it. I lost every single game that I played. And I started to like look into the hobby aspect of it, which was not my favorite aspect when I first started to play. I actually preferred playing it over everything. And then eventually I found my love, my favorite faction, which is Space Marines, of course, because I'm, a generic white boy. I'm like Wonder Bread over here. And I went through a couple iterations of that until I settled on Blood Angels, which is my favorite faction in the entire 40K universe. I love their lore, I love their characters, love everything about them. And I developed my love for painting, and it's really hard to explain without getting into too much of like an emotional backstory, but like painting is my passion. It is the thing I love to do most in this world.
The amount of images in the group chat
in our group chat.
I'll be at work and I'll feel my thigh vibrate and remember, never mind, I'm not gonna make that joke. And I'll look and I'll see you giving us updates on painting and stuff like that. It's always cool to see.
Yeah, it's just, painting is like my zen. It brings me a lot of happiness, brings me a lot of inner peace. And again, without getting into like emotional backstory stuff, it's very important to me. And for the past 10 years at this point, over 10 years, or I guess now it'd be 10 years now, I have been talking to all my friends about Warhammer, and I kept being like, oh, look at this model. This looks cool. Look at that. And all of you guys were like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I'd talk about lore and all that stuff. Yeah. And our buddy Evan, who just recently got into Warhammer.
Oh my gosh.
Like less than a year ago.
Yeah.
When I first got into 40K, I remember him saying, like, I think this world is stupid.
Yeah. And now he's like,
he's in. Yeah.
In deep down the rabbit hole.
And I think that's mainly due to like, he sees a lot of the stuff that I paint, a lot of stuff that I play. And I've been trying for the past almost 10 years to get my friends and family into this hobby. And it finally worked, much to my dismay.
Yeah, because now you're painting all our armies.
Yeah. So you guys can know how much of an idiot I am. So I have my Blood Angels. I have a massive pile of shame with my Blood Angels. I am slowly chipping away at it. But I have probably 4,000 points of Blood Angels, which is a lot for those of you who don't know Warhammer stuff. And then on top of that, my second army, which is my favorite, like my second favorite faction, is Death Guard. I have almost 2,000 points of Death Guard, all unpainted for the most part. I also collect Eldar, and I collect Word Bears, which are another Chaos faction. And then my wife has two factions of her own. She has Dark Eldar, that's her favorite faction.
Which is wild.
Yeah, they're essentially like evil elves. Eldar are the elves of the 40K universe. Dark Eldar are the super evil ones that are like BDSM.
Yeah,
they are actually evil,
like really fucked up.
Yeah, and then,
which is crazy because it's like the polar opposite of Nicole.
Yeah, because Nicole loves cutesy like stuff. She loves all the cutesy little things. Yeah. Like her favorite.
She's like, the Jukari. Those are the ones. That
she's like, she loves everything Studio Ghibli. Her favorite mascot is Gudetama, the lazy egg. But she's got that, and then her other faction that she plays is Sisters of Battle, which is what we're eventually going to talk about today. And so I'm painting all of those because Nicole, while she is an artist in her own right, she doesn't paint really. Yeah. That is what I do. And then I got a buddy of mine from work into Warhammer, and he plays Necrons and Tyranids, and I'm painting both of those, both custom paint jobs, because he wanted something that wasn't in a book. And then eventually, after many, many years, you hit me up, and I forget what question you asked me. You asked me something. I think you just asked, like, if I get into Warhammer, will you paint my stuff or something like that? I can't remember what it was. It was a simple question.
We can go ahead and I can give my own little personal history for it. So for the longest time, like I wasn't really aware of 40K, and like I'm kind of like you. Like I love fantasy. That's like all I read and like things like that. So I'm surprised I got into 40K and not Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
But I remember I'm a big fan of horde shooters. So like Left 4 Dead and stuff like that. And I remember Dark Tide getting announced.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, looks really fun, really cool. That's part of 40K. I remember Ethan talking about 40K before and stuff like that. And I eventually finally got my PC.
Yeah.
Because that's what at first, Dark Tide was only on PC.
Yeah.
I finally got my PC. I finally downloaded Dark Tide. And at that point, by the time that happened, you stopped playing Dark Tide. And I just from playing Dark Tide, I was like, oh man, like I kind of want to like this is super interesting. Like the world seems super interesting. And I think because of my interest on Dark Tide, I started getting recommendations of stuff in my YouTube recommendations, and Bricky was one of them, and other people, and also on TikTok I was seeing stuff, so I was just slowly accruing more interest through that. And then I've played the first Space Marine, and I just kind of fell in love with the over top aspect. Like everything is just so over the top.
Everything's crazy. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I fell in love with. And I remember like being like, hey, if I bought an army, would you put it together?
That might have been it. Yeah.
You know? And I ended up my starting, I only have one army because I'm a broke bitch.
Keep in mind, my armies are from many years of collecting. Well, I no longer have my Corn Demons army. I sold it, which I still highly regret. I loved that army, even though they sucked. I love that army so much.
But you say that, but Evan also just recently got into it. And he has like 3 armies.
That's because Evan has a lot of disposable income.
That's true.
Because he lives in a house full of people.
Yeah, that's true. And so I got Black Templars because I love the over the top aspect of 40K, and who is not more over the top than Black Templars?
Super racist.
Like that part to me is so funny, but also just like the over the top zeal.
They're awesome.
Like, it's also why I'm a big fan of Sisters of Battle as well, because like just everything about them is just so over the top.
Yeah, Black Templars are cool just because like you get to, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, where it's like you get to play the bad guy, and these guys are like,
they're bad.
They're bad.
And they're very like knight kind of like and stuff like that.
It's very much, it takes a lot of inspiration from like actual history, like Templar orders and how like they fucking hunted people down and shit like that. It's cool. That's one thing about like all the different factions in 40K, especially like the Space Marines. Like you get so much different flavor with each one. Like your faction is like very like religious Templar order-esque, very much believe in like their way or the highway kind of deal. While you have my Blood Angels, who are like very Italian, like Catholic inspired
and
in their
super
design.
Gay for Sanguinius.
They are super gay for Sanguinius, who is the best Primarch. Rest in peace. All my brothers cry in the club. Let me tell you. And it's just so cool. You get so many awesome flavors with them. Like I always recommend people like, oh, well, do Salamander. If you don't want to play like the bad guys, play like Salamanders, Raven Guard, or Blood Angels, because they're like the 3 that are kind of in
like,
the
they're in the gray.
They're in the gray. Like you can see them and be like, oh, okay, I can see why these guys are good.
Well, I mean, I have Black Templars, and then also I'm gonna be getting the new Emperor's Children models that are coming out. So that'll add to your pile of shame. But yeah, I mean, like that's kind of it. And then like obviously like we played for the first time, and then I started watching what is it?
40K in 40 minutes.
Yes,
play on tabletop.
Play on tabletop, and then watch that.
If you've never seen a game of 40K, watch Play on Tabletop's 40K in 40 minutes. It is the best way to get into like the tabletop, because it's they simplify everything for you. They don't go into like long drawn out sequences. They explain how things happen, because a normal game of 40K can take up to like 5 hours.
Dude, and that's generous. That's if everyone knows what they're doing.
That's if everyone knows what they're doing and they don't banter.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what we do. We're a bunch of yappers.
But I mean, you fell in love with the painting and stuff like that. And for me, it's the lore. I've always been a huge lore person and like world setting person.
Yeah. For Evan, it's the tabletop.
Yeah,
he loves playing.
It. That's why he has like in the 6 months he's been playing, he has like 3 armies.
Yeah, our buddy Evan, he's fairly new, and he collects Necrons. That's his first army. Ultramarines, because he wanted a Space Marine army, and then World Eaters.
Fuck his World Eaters. I can't stand his World Eaters.
Yeah, so that's kind of like a very oversimplified, like
just some history on us and our love for this.
If all of this goes like well, and people really like this episode and really like the 40K talk, like I'm definitely down to expand on that and to like,
it's one of our shared passions. 100%.
It's the thing. Like I love comics, obviously. Like I love comics because
as I look around the room,
the room that we're in is dedicated to all my hobbies.
Yeah, you are the hobby man, 100%.
I love comics so much with a passion, and they're so near and dear to me. But 40K is my favorite thing ever. It is, without a doubt, the thing that I cherish the most in my free time. If I had to give up all my hobbies except for one,
that'd be 40K.
40K would be the one I would keep. That's it, because it's not just the hobby aspect of it, but it's the other thing that I really hold dear to my heart, and that's the quality of time I get to spend with people that I love.
Yeah.
I get to spend time with you, get to spend time with my wife, get to spend time with our friends, know. Because
I remember you telling me, you were like, one of my life's greatest achievements is getting you in.
Yeah, because it's like, because it's an excuse for me to get to spend time with people. And that's
why
what I
do
love.
this.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this. It was just like, I think you remember seeing the equipment on sale, and you just, funny enough, just going through a breakup, and you called me, and you were like, "Hey, would you want to
start a podcast
with me just for shits and giggles?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything else, so yeah." So here we are.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it with the long drawn out history. I'm gonna try and keep all of this in the final product.
I think you should. Give our small amount of listeners a little peek behind the curtain of who we are. People. I was so excited when you brought this up to me because
we were going to do Hellblazer.
We were going to do Hellblazer, but then you brought up that, and immediately I was like, let's do.
It's an excuse for us to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, if for those who have listened through our previous episodes, you've probably heard us reference. I mean, in the Annihilation episode,
I make Tyranid reference.
You make Tyranid, like it's one of those things that we reference all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the long and short of it, we love Warhammer.
Yeah, we all love Warhammer in this house.
But we should probably go ahead and I guess get into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a Sisters of Battle comic. This came out in 2021 is when it came out. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give my overall thoughts for it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's not super deep. It's badass armored ladies killing shit.
And I didn't expect it to be some like thought-provoking piece of it. If I wanted that, I'd read I'd read a Warhammer book.
Yeah, I'd not read a picture book, essentially.
Yeah. Not saying that comics can't be like in depth, but like it's 5 issues, and it definitely does not hold your hand.
Yes.
When it comes to the setting. When they made this, they were 100% expecting like the people who are reading this have been playing or reading Warhammer for a while,
or even have a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah, because they do not explain certain things in this.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they really explain anything other than like what's essentially necessary for the plot of the story.
Basically.
I mean, they're not going like, well, that floating skull over there is a servitor, and you know what a servitor is?
Yeah.
And going in depth about it.
Yeah.
It's a short, sweet, let's shoot the bad guys kind of story. And I think it's fun, and the Sisters of Battle are badass.
It does what it needs to do.
Exactly.
It's like an advertisement.
Yeah, it's a fun read. And as a Warhammer fan, I was just gushing because it's like, ooh, I know that thing.
Yeah, I know
and,
that
oh,
reference.
that looks cool. And
Yeah.
like all this other stuff. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll start with issue 1, because that's how numbers work. So issue 1, we start off on the surface of this planet called Scythia. Scythia. I'm gonna say Scythia.
That's fine.
Because English. And we start off with these like higher nobles or whatever basically being killed. It doesn't really explain a lot of like what's happening. You're kind of like just like
Thrown into it.
Yeah, you're thrown into it like, okay, what's going on? And it's basically just saying like it's already showing you the inklings that this is a chaos involved story.
Yeah.
Because it's very much like this guy who's killing these upper nobles or whatever priests. He's very much basically like, fuck your god emperor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in him. He's nothing.
Yeah.
And there's essentially a massive riot or revolt happening on this planet. And there's like just a floating narration of how the people are now like wanting more and like, you know, all these other things, and war is happening, and how people desire stuff, and that's what makes life and death sweeter, because you know you live life and all. It's very much like doing the 40K like.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
40K has a very unique way of like yapping.
Yeah.
That's I mean that in the kindest and like most positive way possible, because one thing I love about Black Library books and the comics that we've read is you really get to know how the world works. Now, Nicole and our buddy Chandler have mentioned that like it's a lot of just word salad. Like they say so many things,
and it's like fancy, and it's supposed to be like
high, like
metaphorical,
and
philosophical, and it's like I get the gist of what you're saying, but at the same time, like I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. That's what that kind of narration is for the beginning, and then you get some actual dialogue really happening, and these priests are basically telling this guy that's killing them, your heresy is not going to go unpunished. Like we've already, the Sisters of Battle are here, or as they call them, the Adepta Sororitas, is English, and or High Gothic in this case.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, you're already dead, and you need to save your soul. And the guy's like, nah, you first, and throws him off the fucking
kills
ledge. Him. And he's basically like. He is supposed to be in this moment the figurehead of like
this rebellion
of like
that's quickly like that we quickly find out who like the main.
Yeah, you quickly find out who the main lead is, but he's, I think in that moment, just supposed to symbolize like the revolt and like defiance against the god emperor. May he protect us. And then we immediately jump. Well, first you get a page of the planet they're on, and they do this a few times in the comics, where there's these pages where it shows like the world map and things like that. This shows the planet, kind of gives you a rundown of its conditions, basically saying this is a very hostile and
inhospitable.
And
they explain that like the surface of the planet, and this is kind of one of the driving forces of the narrative of the story. The surface of the planet is inhospitable and doesn't really produce much of anything. So the entirety of the population is underground. It's a subterranean city, hive city, and which hive cities are just basically like mega cities from like Judge Dredd.
Yeah, essentially.
That's quite literally what they are.
Everyone's stacked on top of each other. Like,
you see a lot of comparisons between, surprisingly, Judge Dredd and 40K.
Well, he's essentially the Arbites.
Yeah. Oh, the Adept Arbites.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah.
And they reveal that the planet is very high in like mineral production or
The Promethean.
promethium production. Yeah, which is promethium is like what everything is powered off of in the 40K universe.
It's gas. It's oil.
Yeah, the plasma guns and plasma pistols that Space Marines uses, whatever it's called. What'd you call it?
Promethean.
That's it. Prometheum. I don't know why I can't think today.
Think Prometheus, but Prometheum.
Yeah. I don't know why I can't remember that word. The drugs are still fucking me up, guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, so you get that rundown of the planet, and then you're immediately introduced kind of on the ground level, kind of the main cast.
Yeah.
You get Novitiate, Sister Gita, Sister Superior Cassia, and Canoness Viridian. Then you have not a battle sister, but Sister Dialogus.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it's literally just her name's Dialogue, essentially, because she's like the scribe.
A dialogus is a role. It's like a battlefield role.
Yeah.
To them, so it's almost like a
It's like
an icon bearer. Well, I'm trying to equate it to like, another faction.
Yeah.
They're essentially like an icon bearer for the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, and she's not interested at this moment, but then like another main one is Tedra, I believe her name is. Sister Tedra.
Yeah, the Retributor.
Yeah, and they're basically on ground level. There's chaos happening in the streets, people running all over the place and things like that. And they're basically just kind of like they have a specific mission. They're on a limited time frame, and they need to get to their destination and keep moving. And they're not 100% sure of what's going on. All they know is that there is a revolt happening. Again, you kind of get that a bit of word salad narration throughout this story. And it happens quite a bit.
You're always going to get that with 40K stuff because again, it's such like 40K deals with really high concepts of like faith, technology, like the human spirit, all that kind of stuff, and they just say things that are just like, man, I need a degree to understand this stuff.
But that moment on the streets really just to kind of like do some characterization for the actual Sisters of Battle on the ground. Really, I would say the main plot starts to actually move forward when it cuts to the ship, which is called the Fiery Heart, where you have the Canoness Oris and the Inquisitor Ander.
A Canoness in the 40K universe is the equivalent of like a captain, just so you guys know.
For that, just for the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, for the Sisters of Battle.
But basically, what we find out, the mission that the Sisters of Battle are on they need to find and extract the acolyte of the Inquisitor and get him off planet side before essentially like the actual battle begins. Because the sisters are kind of like in the atmosphere, like hovering around the planet.
Yeah, they essentially sent like a vanguard,
like a special ops
yeah,
team
like a spearhead force to basically scout everything out before they actually go down there
and start killing everything. But it turns out that the acolyte has actually been sending reports to the Canoness and the Inquisitor, but they need to decrypt his letters. And throughout the story, like I think it's like every issue,
you get a little bit more,
and it coincides with the development of the actual narrative and the plot.
Normally, when you figure out what's been decrypted is when you
kind of are coming across it.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially Oris and Inquisitor, they're having like this back and forth of like, the Inquisitor being like, do you not understand how important this is? And the Canoness being like, dude, I get it. I understand. trust my sisters.
Yeah.
They'll get the job done. And I'm surprised he's not, slamming the button for Exterminatus. Because,
So, man, this Canoness is brave too.
Yeah.
Because she mouths off to him pretty often. For those of you that don't know, Inquisitors are like almost as powerful as the Ecclesiarchy, which is the ruling government of the Imperium. They're like a religious, like a theocracy almost. Inquisitors have the power to, on a whim, they don't even really need a reason to.
Yeah.
They can just deem a planet like unsalvageable and then just blow up the planet.
Yeah.
That's literally like they just have
they render it inhospitable for any life.
Yeah.
Demon, alien,
Yeah.
human. Nothing can thrive or live on
Yeah.
this
And they just blow it the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the Inquisitors have a lot of power, and I'm with you. The fact that she's mouthing off to him,
Yeah.
but at the same part, they are like the fighting force of the church.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Sisters
like,
of Battle are the militant branch of the Ecclesiarchy.
Yeah, and since they're part of the Ecclesiarchy, I feel like
You can kind of talk some
you
shit.
can kind of talk some shit.
But a Space Marine, I don't know. A Space Marine could probably talk some shit to him as well.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, like, even though Sisters of Battle aren't as like powerful as Space Marines, they still have like the same level of authority, basically.
Yeah.
So they just fight different things.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. But so they're having like this back and forth, and obviously, like, the Inquisitor's like, this is super important. Do you promise me that these sisters will not fail their mission? And Canoness Oris is just like, I sent my best sisters to do this. They will succeed.
Yeah.
We cut from the ship, and actually, hold on, because I'm just nerding out all over the place. I want to bring up cherubs because you see them on the ship in this scene. Now,
man.
obviously, I think the lore has changed from what it used to be, because I think now cherubs are like vat grown.
Oh, yeah, I think they are, yes.
Before, cherubs were lobotomized babies
Yeah.
that were turned into like little Cupid cherubs
Yeah.
to like run errands and run ammo in battle. And
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like. It's just wild. I just wanted to bring it up because as we've established with our long ass intro, we love Warhammer.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. We cut immediately to the squad on the planet in battle, and we have Gita, the novitiate, or the novice. She's a new sister, praying like, Emperor, give me strength. And they're in the middle of kind of a firefight right now. Civilians are getting caught in the crossfire because I guess it kind of spoils it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. The cultists.
Yeah.
I mean, we already kind of know chaos.
Yeah, the chaos cultists.
But
To them, it's a mystery because throughout the first half of the story, the strike force of sisters are basically like, how is it that a bunch of factory workers
can have
like such military organization?
Yeah.
And the Canoness, that's what her name is, Viridian, is that correct?
Yes.
She is very much like, something doesn't sit right here. There's like more at work than just a rebellion.
Yeah. I don't know if it's this issue or the next one, but I think it's the next issue actually. Cassia, the superior sister.
Yeah.
She brings up a situation to Viridian and is like, this reminds me of Balta.
Yeah.
Where,
they had basically the same situation with rebellion.
Very similar situation. And but yeah, so they're in this firefight. You kind of just get an action sequence essentially. This is badass women murdering cultists essentially.
Very cool.
And it's a cool fight scene. I always like seeing Warhammer stuff depicted in media when it comes to like battles and stuff, because when you play the tabletop, all you're doing is battles, but like obviously there's no animation or real movement to it. Like you're not watching minis fight.
Yeah, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, you move the minis
and you roll
with
dice.
your ruler, and then you roll dice, and then it's like, haha, I shot you.
Yeah,
but you're not seeing like fucking muzzle flash or anything.
Yeah.
So it's always cool to me to like see it actually depicted.
Yeah.
But yeah, they make short work of the fucking cultists. I mean, while sisters are not, like I said, Space Marines, they're not genetically enhanced or anything.
No, but they are. You get the sense that their faith is like legit because they are, in a way, magically enhanced.
In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they do some, even in this story, they do some absolutely
Yeah.
insane shit.
I mean, also, they're just highly trained.
Yeah, they are. They're trained from childhood
Yeah.
to be warriors.
Yeah.
Like they are on the same level as Space Marines in the sense of like they are warriors. They have the respect of warriors, that kind of stuff.
They're in the same as far as like training, in the sense of like rigorous training from, you know, their inception. I'd say even a little more so, because Space Marines, they don't have to be children. They're usually a bit older.
It depends. It depends on the chapter.
But typically, Sisters of Battle, it's like child.
Yeah.
You know, and everything. But obviously, they don't have the genetic enhancements. But so they take care of the cultists, no problem. Mm-hmm. A lot of the fighting in this, it's like there's not a threat posed unless it's a demon or they just have overwhelming numbers. Yeah. Which is wild.
They do notice this is kind of where they start to suspect that there's more going on because the cultists bring out actual like military equipment.
Yeah.
They end up using, I believe they're called chimeras. It's
walkers.
It's the walkers that the Imperial Guard use.
Yeah. Which I think they make note of, like how the hell did they get that?
Yeah, they suspect that they broke into the armory, planetary armory, that kind of stuff.
But they defeat these cultists, and you know, some of the civilians are safe and stuff like that. And there's this one old lady who's hugging one of the sisters, being like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you," and you know, they're kind of, the sisters are doing their thing of like, you know. Thank God the Emperor. Right, sister? Yeah. Yes, thank God the Emperor. And what the sister that's being hugged, there's like a narration of being like, there's a narration happening saying their sacrifice lie thick in the air, weakening the barrier between real space and the warp. Sister Danya can smell it. By the time she recognizes the stench of chaos for what it is, it's too late. And at that moment, the old lady that was hugging her saying thank you starts to transform into a demon.
Mm-hmm. And like absorbs her.
Like, it like sucks her in. And
it's like the Blob.
The moment that I saw that, I instantly knew which chaos faction we were dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. It took me a second to like place it, because I was like, I hadn't seen that demon before, essentially. So I was like, what faction uses that demon?
Once I saw the main antagonist of this story, I was like, oh, I know what demon we're like, what chaos god we're dealing with.
I knew from this demon, because like it took me a moment to place, but then I was like, maybe I'm overthinking this. What color is the demon? And
well, here's the thing. You know, I see where you're going. I was like, okay, it's a little purple, but like the way the light is hitting him, like
it's also a little blue.
Could be blue.
It could also be Zinch.
Yep. So in the universe of Warhammer, there are these powers that be, known as the great powers. 4 chaos gods, each one representing a different aspect of like human emotion and like negativity.
Yeah.
There is Khorne, the chaos god of blood and war. He's also like a chaos god of like honor, in a sense, the like warrior.
Skulls for the Skull Throne.
Yeah, blood for the blood god.
Yeah.
Nurgle, who is my personal favorite, and I also believe your personal favorite of the chaos gods. He is the god of death and decay. He is the classic like grandfather Nurgle.
Yeah, everything dies and rots. Very zombie and parasite.
If you hear like the thing, the gift of contagion, or Nurgle's gift, that normally has to deal with like disease and pestilence. Zinch, who is the god of like change and fate. He very much is he's the one chaos god that's like, you know, he's evil, but he's like playing a bigger game.
Yeah.
Like he will do things that are obviously like for his own benefit, but could also help humanity.
Yeah, like you might be like, that's strange. This Zinch thing just helped me, but it's actually because it's got a long game.
Yeah, it's because he's like, I need you to survive to this point, that kind of deal.
And he's a big bird fan.
Yeah, he's lots of birds, very blue.
Yeah,
a lot of Zangors.
Very, very Eldritch themed stuff going on, like eyes. And
everything's got a little bit of tentacles on it.
Yeah.
And then the newest Chaos God, I say new in a very light term because I believe Slaanesh, she's like 1,000 years old or something like that.
New as comparison to the other ones.
Yeah, because the first three always existed.
Yeah.
But they were just small, weaker gods before.
And then a bunch of stuff happened.
Before the War in Heaven and all that. And that's a whole fucking thing.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Slaanesh is the chaos goddess or god of excess and pleasure and all the things that humanity does. Basically, she's like a god of emotion.
Yeah.
Where
extreme
emotions, like pain, love, hate, that kind of stuff.
But a lot of chaos gods are always you have the Imperium of Man, which is bad.
Yeah.
And I guess, you need to have everything else, because usually stories are told from the perspective of the Imperium. So if
you need something that's worse.
Yeah, essentially, like you have bad cop and worse cop.
Yeah.
Chaos is worse cop.
Oh yeah.
100%.
100%.
So yeah, that's chaos. There are a lot of skulls, a lot of pain, a lot of death.
Yeah. A lot of tentacles, a lot of spikes.
Yep.
A lot of body horror. That's a big thing with demons is like
body horror.
Which is cool. It adds to that, like you kind of mentioned it, like the Eldritch, Lovecraftian theme to it. Yeah.
But yeah, so this old lady turns into a massive demon and absorbs the sister Danya, and then kills another sister, which is not named
Nola.
Nola.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Cassia tells her aim for the head, Nola.
Oh yeah.
And she goes to, and then it breaks her neck.
And the narration here I really like is where there's chaos, there is heresy, because sisters are extremely about killing heresy.
Mm-hmm.
And corruption, mutation, and death are essentially in the air. And then another sister, Elsbeth.
Yeah, Elsbeth.
Gets grabbed by a tentacle, and it like breaks and shatters her spine.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another narration quote I really like, because there's a few specifically in this moment of like quotes that are really is her spine shatters. She knows she has but one breath left in her, and she uses it to pray. And as she's getting absorbed into the demon, she pulls out a grenade, pops the pin, and she's just praying to the emperor that thou wouldst bring them only death. And she blows up and kill. And I'd like to see. Okay. All right. It's shit like that I'm just like, I don't know why it appeals to me, but like that level of just like badassery, like self-sacrifice and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what it is about it. I mean, like, it's one of the reasons why when I play Helldivers, I'm trying to be last on the Pelican shooting as I go up the ramp, because I don't know. It's just so badass and cool. And like, it's why I love it. I mean, I don't know, but I love that moment.
Yeah.
It sums up 40K and I think the sisters really well. Like, their whole thing is faith, martyrdom, and fire.
Yeah, like, especially the sub-faction of sisters that we are following. Each faction has their own sub-factions. Mm-hmm. And we are following a faction known as the Order of Our Martyred Lady, which is essentially like one of the first sister factions, who their whole thing is definitely like self-sacrifice for the greater good of humanity.
Like, I think there's one moment when they're like assessing the battlefield and they're like, what do you see? And I think Cassia is like, a great opportunity for martyrdom
Yeah.
and something else. And it's basically like a great opportunity to get ourselves fucking killed, but
Yeah.
they don't see it as that.
Right,
which
right,
it's,
right.
it's very representative, but it does a very quick cut. Even the narration does as well in this moment. And this is when we're introduced to the actual head villain
Yeah.
of this story, which is, her name is Kreia. And she's essentially 100% looks like a highborn, like
Oh, yeah, like a
woman.
noble.
Yeah. And basically the narrations, like, Kreia never had dolls. She didn't have toys growing up. Her toys were people. And she loves playing with people. And
That narration right there makes me think like, okay, yeah, she is highborn, noble.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she's kind of having like a little, when the henchmen mess up and they have to explain themselves, that's what's happening. And the one dude's like begging for mercy, and she is essentially like, is this how you beg for mercy? Like standing here and just like pleading. And so he gets down on like his hands and knees. I will also say in the narration, where it's talking about how she plays and views with these people. It says that was how it felt at times, like playing God. Playing God is how she felt when she played with people. So she already, without the corruption happening in this absolute heresy happening, she was already a fucked up
Yeah, very
individual.
fucked up individual.
But this guy, he starts begging, and the art for her also really kind of shows
Yeah.
how kind of demented she is.
Yeah. Now, I will say, just as a really quick side note, I really like the art in this.
I do too.
I thought it was really good. I hope we get to see more work by this individual that we definitely have never covered before.
I 100% think we've covered them.
We
before.
spent like 5 minutes trying to figure out who this guy was.
Dude, again, it might be something I've read on my own time and I'm like getting it confused, but I 100% like, it's so,
I'm there with.
I recognize
I'm
that
there
name.
with you. I'm there with you.
But
That was just a little side thing. I really like the art.
I do too.
It's great.
I think the art was fantastic.
I think it is the best part of the story, or not, or like the product.
Yeah, I can see that. My view, because I had no real expectations going into this story as far as like narrative, so like I'm not disappointed or anything.
No, I'm not disappointed either.
Yeah,
I think as a whole package, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
but the art really sells it.
It
for
sells 100%. But yeah, so the one dude's, he's begging on all fours, and she basically. There's like 3 other guys that are part of the guard, which this is also kind of when we're finding out, oh, they didn't break into the armory. The guard is kind of in on it.
Yeah.
And she's like, go ahead and make these guys like a public execution, make it painful and all this other stuff, which also sold the fact like, oh, okay, this is like Slanesh 100%,
Yeah.
And then
She also dresses in like all purple.
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's
It's
a dead
screaming.
giveaway.
And bottom line, she's basically saying she's excited to like see the turn of events because her right hand man is like basically saying, be careful of the guy we saw in the very beginning killing the priest. He wants power. And she's like, oh, not real power like I have. He just wants power over life and death of like wanting to kill people and stuff like that. And as she's kind of like debating on that, she's basically saying, I'm excited of what he will become. And as she says that, she goes ahead and sits on the back of the dude who's begging for his life on his hands and knees, which again, it's just like, it's like at this point as a Warhammer fan, it's like slamming your head against the Slanesh wall. Like, hey, this is who the bad guys are being corrupted by. So yeah, like after the first issue, like it's like there's no real mystery of what's going on here. It's more about again, it's more just like a watch people shoot big gun, kill people.
It's a fun action comic.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, so they managed to wrap up their battle with the demon. They've buried the sisters that have died.
Yeah, they say a prayer for them.
They say a prayer for them. They don't get to say their last rites, and it kind of emphasizes that this is a lesson that Gita, the novice sister, has to learn on the battlefield. Like it's not the other sisters; they are used to it, but this is kind of her first kind of thing to it.
And they kind of tell her that like this is your first, but it won't be your last.
Yeah.
Essentially, because like it's the whole like war never changes. That kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, that's 40K.
That's what
in
it is.
general. I mean,
it's in their slogan, like there is only war.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta bring my notes back up.
So we have that, and then we cut to the back to the fiery heart
ship. Yep.
And the Inquisitor he's essentially saying like, have you established contact with the governor of the planet? And Oris is saying like, I have, but they're pulling back, they're losing ground, that kind of deal. And the Inquisitor is really like questioning Oris and like, do you really think you can like handle this mission? And Oris is like, the governor has been nothing but helpful for me. Like, you need to have a little bit of fucking faith, bitch. Are you serious?
Yeah. And they end up decrypting one of the acolyte's letters, and she's like, Inquisitor, I will read this to you. Let me know your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And she reads, essentially what the letter is saying is that this acolyte, he's kind of like a spy.
Yeah.
And he's like, I cannot tell where this corruption is coming from. It does not discriminate. Like, the corruption takes man, woman, child. It does not matter station. It takes everybody, and I cannot tell where this corruption comes from. And as the same time this letter is being read as like narration, the sisters on the ground are also realizing that, because they come across these enforcers who they think is harassing these people, these citizens. And when they go enforcers, like to be like, hey, we're here to help, they immediately start firing upon the sisters.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like starting to dawn on them, like, shit, I think we're on our own.
Yeah. The whole planet is.
Yeah. And then, they take care of those enforcers rather quick, and they come upon essentially a large, I don't know, like plaza or something like that.
Like a city square almost.
Yeah. And there's like just a bunch of people also taking other citizens like under arrest to eventually corrupt them. And it's like it's people who look like beggars and
the common
it's everybody. Everybody is in on it.
Oh yeah.
And that's pretty much the end of issue 1.
Yeah.
You get a nice big galaxy map and everything like that.
Yeah, it shows the Milky Way galaxy and like basically the state of affairs of everything. That's like a big staple in 40K is the map. You can always see it.
Issue 2 starts out, we get a character flashback of Gita, the novice sister. And this is 23 years ago on this same planet, because Gita is actually from this planet. That is why she's actually on this mission. Yeah. Because she knows the layout.
Yeah, and I messed up, and during that conversation the Inquisitor was having with Oris, he essentially was like, or Oris says like, oh, Gita, she's actually from this planet.
Yeah.
And the Inquisitor's like, that's why you sent an initiate?
Yeah.
Because she's from the planet? Are you fucking crazy? And Oris is like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. and it turns out she does, because in the later issues, she's the one to navigate them through
she
the
basically
shit show.
saves them.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like cornered or getting chased, and she'll be like, take a left here.
Yeah, because Gita was actually like a street urchin, a street rat, that kind of deal.
And that's where the second issue picks up, is this flashback of her as a street urchin before she is taken to the ecclesiarchy and trained as a sister of battle. Now, one thing that's super interesting about this is that anytime her name is said or her parents' names or like things
Yeah,
of import, it's actually it's censored out.
Yeah.
Because sisters are psycho conditioned while training to essentially forget their past selves.
Yeah, which is pretty commonplace in the Imperium because most Space Marines do that as well. Yeah. I think the only exceptions are the Blood Angels and the Salamanders because they take a lot of pride in their cultures before they became Space Marines. And they're actually some of the few like Space Marines that are allowed to keep their families and stuff like that. Especially salamanders.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's also because salamanders are super not isolated but independent.
They are, yeah.
And so, like, I mean, they don't really need anyone for anything, really.
Same with Blood Angels. Because one of the stipulations that Sanguinius set for the Emperor when they first met was, I will stand by your side faithfully and to the end, as long as my people get to keep their freedoms and don't have to conform to you. Yeah. And the Emperor was like, mad respect, I'll do it.
But only you.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit of history.
Everyone else, I'm going to be a tyrant
for. 100%. Fuck you, Angron. But no, that's just a little tidbit on like how those factions work. But yeah, one of the main things is, like you said, they're conditioned to, basically forget their past, and they are given a new name. Normally it's a name that has to do with like their history. Yeah. Like for our martyred lady, a lot of sisters are named after martyrs.
Yeah.
People that are looked up to in their order.
I feel like a lot of time, like the sisters, when you're talking about sisters of battle, I want people who are listening to this or learning Warhammer or whatever, like, as far as kind of like their aesthetic, it's very like saints, like
a lot of cathedrals, a lot of pipe organs.
Exactly. And like the names are very like saint oriented, like even real world saints.
When you hear the phrase nuns with guns,
it's 100% accurate.
It is 100% accurate.
It is nuns with guns.
And when I put the video up, obviously there will be a thumbnail of a sister of battle. Like, that would be crazy if I didn't put that up.
You should just do just
something random.
Yeah. Just put Sanguinius.
Yeah. But when you hear that term, nuns with guns, well, yes, it is a meme in the 40K community.
It's 100% accurate.
It's accurate. It's 100% accurate. So
yeah, that would be the simplified. Yeah, it's nuns with guns. But yeah, so we get that little flashback kind of characterization moment of Gita. I 100% thought after seeing that Gita was gonna die.
I did too.
I thought she was gonna die. I thought she was 100. Honestly, I thought everyone was.
I did too. I thought everyone was going to die. Spoilers: they don't all die.
Yeah, they don't know. A lot do.
A lot do, but not all of them.
Not all of them. But then we're back to modern time, and this is actually the moment I was talking about,
where they kind of get cornered by the civilians because they thought that they were just civilians.
Yeah, and they're looking at the plaza or whatever, and Gita is like, what should we do? And Cassia is like, all I see is great opportunity for martyrdom and slim chance for success.
Yeah.
It's like
Cassia, I think, is my favorite out of the group.
Yeah.
She has a lot of really good moments, and she's pretty funny. She's very pessimistic.
And that's the thing that I think gets glossed over a lot with 40K is there's actually some decent humor.
Oh yeah. Even Space Marines, they have some pretty good humor.
Yeah, they have some pretty good humor. And it's how you do it. It's not like haha, man told joke. Yeah. It's like just the
subtle cadence of how
people talk, or like the contrast of something. Yeah. Like for that example, like anyone else would be like, that's a great opportunity to get ourselves killed and fail. They're like, man, we could really martyr ourselves out there, but we'd fail our mission, and our mission's super important right now. Any other time, yeah, sure, let's go out there and get martyred. Yeah. It's like, it's just so it's over the top. It's crazy. It's sisters of battle. But yeah, so they're like, we have a mission to complete. We can't really do that. And this is actually when Cassie also brings up, like I said earlier, Balta, and how they had a similar feeling about here as they did in Balta. Mm-hmm. And Cassia is like, or Viridian's like, I really hope it's not like Balta.
Yeah, because they barely made it out alive.
And Cassia is super like glazing of Viridian.
Yeah, they're like best friends.
Yeah, because they've been through battle fucking Balta together.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're the reason we even got out of there alive. And Viridian's like, oh, stop. Blushing a little bit.
We do get this will be, I think it's either at the end of this or it's at the beginning of chapter 3. We get a really nice narration on like Cassia's thought process towards Viridian.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
But yeah, so Gita is like, okay, I know a way we can circumvent this and stuff because they have to keep moving. And they end up in these tunnels. And there's like just bodies everywhere. They can smell the stench of death. Mm-hmm. Like it's permeates everything. And they're like, but something else is in the air too. Something sweet and familiar, something wrong. And this is when, again, like it's already been smashing us in the face of like who the bad guy is, like who the chaos bad guy is. And this is when they come upon a bunch of citizens around a campfire in these tunnels, and they're like, stay calm, we are no threat to people who are, you know, loyal and serve the emperor and everything like that. And this guy's like, yes, we're loyal and starving. And they kind of get, I wouldn't say lulled into a sense of like false security, but the sisters are kind of like, you know,
they let their guard down.
They let their guard down 100%. They're still on alert, but they're like, oh, it's citizens. And
what are they going to do?
Yeah, what are they going to do? And this guy just starts going on a fucking monologue. And I like the monologue a lot. Yeah. He's like, I thought I knew what pleasure was. I thought it was extra hour of sleep on van days, or the unexpected pause in work when a generator malfunctions. But I was wrong. It is in the moment before you get what you want, in the first touch, the first taste, the first bite. Do you know it, sisters? Do you know true pleasure? And the moment he says that, his head just fucking explodes.
Yeah.
As Sister Viridian says yes, as she's blasting his fucking head apart with her bolt pistol. And she's like, serving the emperor is the highest pleasure. And the other sisters are like, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, this is a hell yeah simulator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turns out that these citizens are fucking Slanesh like worshippers and stuff. And
they start to like fuse together.
Yeah, they at first they kind of think like, oh, like, you know, they're just citizens, whatever. And one of the sisters is like, men without faith are monsters. And Viridian's like, I think these are little, like, not men anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when it shows them, again, body horror.
Yeah.
Fusing together and, like, intertwining and stuff like that. Then you have those... that middle page. I didn't even read what that middle page. It basically goes in depth about the Sororitas.
It's the Battle Sisters hierarchy, where it shows that the emperor is above all, and then the ecclesiarchy speaks for the emperor, and then right below the ecclesiarchy is the Adeptus Sororitas,
and then you have the different orders.
And you have the different orders: the Order Militant, Order Dialogus, Order Familius, Order Hospitaller, and Order Minoris. Yeah. And that all goes into extreme detail of like which each one is. Yeah. I am not going to get into that because that is crazy.
But yeah, so we jump from that to the Fiery Heart once again. And they are talking to the governor, and the governor is basically like, why aren't you guys coming in? All my people, like guards and stuff, are being slaughtered, and like I need you to come now. And he's been actually destroying support pillars within the Hive City to collapse sections of the city to try and kill the riots and stuff like that. And Oris is like, we are going to be initiating battle soon. Stop dropping the fucking city down on people. You know, like it's only gonna make things worse.
Yep.
And she's like, fucking hide in your fucking villa or your little fortress. Just stop blowing shit up.
fucking incompetent asshole.
Yeah. She's like, basically like, stop doing shit. We're coming.
Yeah, let people who can actually handle the situation do
and then
their
hangs
thing.
up on him. And it's basically like, what a fucking dickhead. But again, the Orus and the Inquisitor, they have the Inquisitor's whole role in this is essentially is to add pressure of like find the acolyte. But like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say his role is unimportant, but he, in my opinion, doesn't really do anything.
No. He's simply there to not only give exposition, but to also give the ever looming threat of like, oh, is that because obviously as fans of the series, we know who Inquisitors are and what they can do.
Yeah.
He's there for the overlooming threat of like, at what point is he just gonna go, fuck it, and like press the button?
That's true. Again, we have they have decrypted another letter from the acolyte as well, and this one is: the city feels notably different. Workers are content, and there are fewer reports of theft and violence. The change seems to have caused a significant increase in food in production, and that's fucking like unheard of.
Yeah.
Even Orus and Ander
are like, that's crazy.
They're like, people were content? What?
Because like, I will say there's a little bit of like self-realization here, like self-deprecation, where it's like, we suck.
Yeah, like
there's
our working conditions are awful.
Yeah.
What do you mean they're content? They're supposed to be miserable.
like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
He's like, there is heresy going on here. People are fucking happy.
They're like, you're happy? Heresy.
Yeah.
Make them unhappy. Jarvis, twist his balls.
Jarvis, clip that, please.
But and Orus is like, we checked the shipping manifest and like the imports exports, like there's not an increase.
It's not like they're making more money or anything. It's just
they just seem happy.
They just seem happy, and so they're working harder.
And the Inquisitor's like, do you think they were stockpiling Promethium? And Orus is like, yeah, it's possible because technically the Promethium is very flammable. I mean, it's oil. It could be used as an explosive.
It's a fossil fuel.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of one of the things that they are now like proposing to be like worried about is that they've been stockpiling the Promethium and what they could use it for and things like that. But again, the Inquisitor also is like, look, I need you to make sure your sisters succeed. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use alternative methods.
And we all know what that means.
And Orus is like, that won't be necessary. Like, my detachment will not fail. Mm-hmm. And that's basically pretty much sums up their dialogue. And then it cuts back to the sisters fighting that amalgamation of people that has now turned into another Slaneshi demon.
Yeah. Really cool action sequence.
Yeah, this is another like action scene and stuff. It's really cool. Again, I love seeing Warhammer like fights and battles like actually come to life and drawn and things like that.
You know, because we've already mentioned multiple times, like sisters they're not enhanced genetically. It's more faith-based stuff, magic. So it's really cool seeing these sisters do like superhuman shit.
Yeah.
That like you don't really think of. Because at least for me, sisters very much just seem like a step above Imperial Guard. Like
they
like you have Imperial Guard, sisters, Space Marines. That kind of deal.
I don't know. This might be a hot take. I think I'm about to say a super hot take here. Okay. If it wasn't for the fact that the Sisters of Silence were blanks, like they weren't blanks, the Sisters of Battle would be better than them.
Oh, 100%. I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Oh, well, I'm just saying. So I think
that might be a hot take for other people, but for me and you, that's not a hot take.
Yeah, I think they are. I agree that they're the middle ground between Space Marines and Imperial Guard, but they're like, to me, just under Space Marines.
Yeah.
Like, there's a big gap between Imperial Guard and Sisters of Battle, while there's a small gap between Space Marines and Sisters of Battle. I don't know. I feel like that still might be a hot take, but I'm just saying, Sisters of Silence, kind of getting carried by them custodies, you know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Custodies are still cool, but yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, so they fucking are fighting these demons, and then there's like a demon hound that shows up, which looks like a mini little manicore.
Yeah.
Tedra fucking like almost snaps the fucking neck of that demon hound, but yeets him across the room, and then he gets fucking obliterated by a bolt gun.
Yeah.
And or no, they throw it, and it ends up in the view of a sentry gun that got placed up, and that thing fucking vaporized.
Yeah, and they were like, "Well, thank God we did that."
Because now we know it's there. Because otherwise, we would have walked right into that and died.
Yeah.
But now they have like this situation of like, okay, we can't. We have to go that way.
Yeah.
How the fuck do we do it? It cuts. We are now back to Kreia, and this says deep below the city, and she's like playing in this pool of water.
So something we forgot to mention it when she's introduced. She's in this like temple palace thing that seems to be very recently constructed. The reason why I say that is because there's like statues and stuff, but they're of like people that are like melted together. And in this temple, there's this massive like cavernous pool.
Yeah.
So that just for that, but continue on. Yeah, she's swimming.
She's like playing at the pool. She's on this nice little like couch thing, and she is talking to her right-hand man guy, and she's talking about the governor. She's like, "Did the governor like my gift?" And her right-hand man's like, "How could he not? He's a greedy little fuckface."
You find out that the governor is,
getting corrupted as well.
Yeah.
And I think it was either this issue or the next issue. I don't want to spoil. I mean, I'm going to be spoiling it a little bit, but I had already started to put together how the corruption was spreading.
Yeah.
Because the fact that they opened up this moment with her, and she's also been around water a lot, and also the fact that like the acolyte's note was like, I don't know how it's spreading. There's no churches or like meetups or anything like that. Like it's an unseen thing.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, I think it's got something to do with the water. Also, I was just like jokingly in my head when it was like, I don't know how the infection's spreading, like just jokingly in my head, I'm like, it's in the water.
Yeah, because it's like the first thing you think
it's
of.
the first thing you think of, like when it comes to like pathogens and stuff like that. So I ended up putting 2 to 2 together, and I was like, I think it's the water. Spoiler.
It's the water.
It's the water. But so they're talking about the governor, and the governor is like getting corrupted essentially. And they're talking about why hasn't the Sisters of Battle attacked yet? And her right-hand man, Orgren or whatever, he's like, they will attack soon enough. And the guy that was begging earlier is still here. And Kreia asks him, like, what do you want? And the guy's like, I want the sword. I want their heads. And she was like, okay, then like take it all, take all their heads, and hands them a sword. And that's essentially being like, she's about to sick everything she has on these sisters.
Yeah.
The sisters are in this side room stuck between the sentry, and obviously they can't go back because they got a mission to complete.
Yeah.
And they're kind of watching in this other big room. There's like executions happening and stuff like that. And they're trying to figure out a plan on how to keep moving forward. The problem is they could destroy the turret,
but the noise
would bring every single fucking cultist in on their heads.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, we need a distraction if that's the case. And since Gita is from here, she's like, I think I know, like, she's kind of like stuttering and like it's like when you're raising your hand,
Yeah.
like trying to like raise your hand but not interrupt what's going on.
Yeah.
And Viridian's like, now's not the time to be like timid, like fucking speak your mind.
Yeah.
And Gita comes up with this plan. There is a system within this subterranean hive city where it's like a collection of like mirrors and stuff that allows sunlight from the surface to come down into the subterranean level. But it's not like where it's all over the place. It's like very select, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's a singular shaft of light that comes down. It's not like blanketing the whole city.
Yeah.
It just is like a single spot.
It's like a beam.
Yeah, it's essentially a beam of light that comes down.
Yeah. It's supposed to like, it's like a religious like
Thing.
It's supposed to represent the emperor's light and stuff like that.
It's very ceremonial.
Yeah.
And so they actually activate that to create a distraction, and then they blow up the sentry while it does. And it actually blinds a bunch of these cultists, and they manage to get past the sentry, and they start opening fire on these heretics. I mean, again, another action scene of fucking people's heads getting blown up, essentially. Then it cuts to Kreia in her chambers with her right-hand man, and one of the beams of light is there as well. And a person comes up and is like, what is happening? And Kreia's basically like, the foxes are in the hen house, the snakes are in the grass, the sisters are here, essentially. And she goes into the beam of light and she's like, can you see me now, Emperor? Can you finally see me? I hope you're watching now that it is too late.
Yeah.
Basically putting up the middle finger to the God Emperor, that fucking heretical bitch.
Man, you're a Black Templar.
Sorry, my Black Templar's showing. I'm just saying, heresy.
Yeah.
And she's basically saying, like, fuck the Emperor, fuck the Imperium. She's got a new god now, which is kind of like a theme that runs with them and her people.
Yeah.
This is all happening. The sisters begin to move forward. You get some like kind of snippets of them moving through the different hallways and tunnels and stuff, fighting heretics along the way. And as they're kind of getting cornered, I believe this is the moment that you're talking about how Cassia views Viridian.
So when all this starts, it says, the narration goes, Sister Superior Cassia's highest wish is to serve the Emperor. The second highest is to not let Kenan S. Viridian down. They share a bond forged by countless battles, triumphs, and losses. But Cassia owes her Kenan S. a debt. While Viridian has lost count of the many times they have saved each other's lives, Cassia has not. She repays her Kenan S. with fire and fury. And when she feels the bullet pierce her skin, because all this is happening while they're fighting.
Yep.
And Cassia's kind of like holding the line, letting all of her sisters escape. As she feels the bullet pierce her skin and the blood spilling out of the wound, her thoughts are not of the Emperor or the life she is about to lose, but of Kenan S. Viridian, as she is shot in the neck and begins to bleed out.
And they're in that light.
Yeah, in the light.
Very symbolic.
Yeah, and Viridian is like holding Cassia and is like,
no,
yeah, you can't die, that kind of shit. And it is cool because, again, a lot of people just see Warhammer as like mindless, like battle and shit like that. But no, there's a lot of like heart that goes into it. And
well, I think that's what also makes Warhammer super fun is that the individuals within the machine of the Imperium.
There's a lot of heart
like
and
that.
soul.
Yeah, like to survive and live in 40K, you have to have like an indomitable spirit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And you really get to see those bonds forged by people who kind of go through the same bullshit that you do.
Trauma bonding left and right.
And it's not just like the sisters. Like you see it with Space Marines.
Yep.
Like which
Brother.
which is why I find it so funny when people say Space Marines are boring.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, you've obviously never read a Space Marine
Dude,
book.
the first book I ever listened to, I should say, because Audible is the thing, is Hell's Reach.
Yeah. Hell's Reach is such a good book.
It's granted, it's not perfect, but it is so fucking good.
It's pretty good.
It's Black Templar's Band of Brothers, essentially.
And you really get to see Space Marines humanized, especially with Grimaldus, who is the main character of that book.
It's got one of my, this is kind of a tangent, but I still, it's got one of my favorite lines for an ending of a book ever. I love it so much.
Don't spoil it because I haven't finished.
Oh, dude, it's so fucking good. I want to say it. It's so good. If you're listening to this, I highly recommend you go
read it.
Go read it
or listen to it, whatever you prefer. It is great. There's also a fan animation of Hell's Reach. That's sums it up. That's very good, from what I've heard. And
yeah, you should just watch that.
No, I want to listen to it. I'm like halfway done with the book. So
but when was the last time you actually read it?
Oh man,
you're gonna have to start over. And then
no. Normally, once I listen to a book for a little bit, I just remember like, oh, okay, that's what I was doing.
But anyway, that being said,
so chapter 3 or issue 3 picks up with a flashback, kind of showing Viridian and Cassia's like. Not meeting, but like they're
the thing they've been referencing, which is Balta.
Yeah, Balta, and they're taking out basically like Nurgle cultists.
And one thing to note, I don't know if you noticed this, the narration boxes for the story have been like a purple hue.
Yeah, the
narration boxes for when they're in this flashback when it's dealing with Nurgle, green.
Yeah, it's nice.
I don't know if you noticed that or not. I just thought it was really cool. You know, I'm like, I got monkey brain. Yeah, I see that. I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. Really smart.
But yeah, it's essentially showing like how they became friends.
How Viridian lost her eye.
Yeah, because she is missing her left eye. And we cut back to the present day, and they're saying like, we can't stop the bleeding. The only way that we're going to save Cassia is if we take her back, and there's no going back.
And then they're like, what can we do?
Yeah, and Viridian is like, the only thing we can do, and that's pray.
So, I have something I'd like to propose here. They pray, and through this prayer, they actually heal Cassia.
Yeah, she survives.
And bring her back, which took me off guard.
Yeah. They can do that.
What if... Because Battle Sisters, I don't know if they're strict anti-psychers, but I know they don't... Like, you don't really see psychers within their ranks.
No, you don't. They're not really psychers.
So, they are believing that the Emperor... through their prayer is healing. But isn't it actually they're just manifesting?
So like orcs.
Yeah, like they're using psychic power from the warp to heal, but they just believe it's the Emperor. So in fact, are they not psychers? They just don't know they're psychers. They are just attributing their psyker powers that they don't realize they have to the Emperor.
I think you need to have a little bit of a sit down. Are you being heretical right now?
But you do not you get what I'm saying?
Oh, I get what you're saying. I just can't believe I'm hearing it right now. No, I mean
no.
There are
heretical, not heretical.
There are moments where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you can see that because there are characters like Saint Celestine.
I mean, she's immortal.
She is. Well, that's because she is possessed by a demon. She's possessed by a chaos demon or a chaos angel.
Oh, but it's an angel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entity from the warp.
Yeah.
So.
But that's somehow not heretical.
Yeah. But that's considered psychic abilities right there.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just saying, like, they're like, we prayed and the Emperor answered. But it's like, isn't it actually just psychic magic?
Hey, don't ask questions you don't want an answer to.
Okay. Well, they pray, and the Emperor answers, and Cassia is brought back and her wounds heal, which is really cool. Yeah. While this is happening, a little youngster, little baby boy.
Some civilians that they saved.
Yeah, some civilians they saved. This little child, this little baby boy, he goes running off. I'm like, oh, where's this kid going? He's reporting to the cultists where the sisters are.
Yep.
And they fucking start heading towards the sisters. And once again, Cassia is brought back, and they are immediately, once again, in combat.
Yeah.
At this point, we're getting really into the thick of things.
Yeah, a lot of the action.
A lot of the action's starting to pick up.
The first couple issues are a lot of setup.
Yeah.
The last 3 issues, or the other half, is a lot of, you still get a lot of like narration, but
it's the climax.
It's the climax. It's a lot of, they're like, we got 5 issues. We got to fucking
we got to start wrapping this up.
Yeah, we got to pack it in.
The little boy also goes and reports to Kreia, and she is basically like, okay, we know where they're at now. I'm going to make their lives as miserable as possible. And she essentially gets on the intercom to the Hive City and is like, the Sisters of Battle are in Precinct 4. Hunt them down.
Yeah.
Kill them.
Yeah.
You know, this scene very much, it's funny. You brought up Judge Dredd earlier. Mm-hmm. This scene in particular reminds me so much of the Dredd movie with Carl Urban.
Such a good movie.
It's so good. It's so underrated.
It's so good, and it's a crime that it didn't get a sequel.
And it's such a crime. I love that movie. But in that movie, Mama, the villain, she gets on the radio of the Mega Tower and is like, the judges are here, fucking kill them or get out of the way.
So
Just thinking about it, you're like,
that's such a good movie.
Yeah, good.
The song from the trailer, the LaRue, In for the Kill. I think it was a Skrillex remix,
something like
that. I forget what it was, but it was a remix of In for the Kill.
So good.
So, oh my god, that's like one of the best trailer songs I've ever heard. That and Never Fade Away cover for the Cyberpunk 2077 game. Those are some of the best like songs I've ever heard.
You know what's funny is you're the only person whenever I talk about Dredd who's like actually seen it.
Dude,
everyone else I've ever brought that movie up
I don't think Nicole has seen it either.
They're like, I've never seen it.
That movie is so underrated.
It's
and
so good.
It's a crime that it never got a sequel.
Carl Urban fucking knocked it out of the park. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. But yes, she's basically on the radio like, hey, they're in Precinct 4. I will give you a reward for your success in killing them, and the punishment will be just as equal for failure. Mm-hmm. Again, very Slaanesh thing. And the civilians that, that you would think are like glad to be saved immediately turn on the sisters.
Whether they were already kind of like corrupted or they're like, I don't want to fucking die.
Mm-hmm. And so now the sisters are in this situation where they're just kind of running away, and Gita's like leading them like to safety, essentially. Like she's like, making call outs of like turn left, right, whatever. And we get again some more word salad narration with Kreia.
Yeah.
And it starts like the battle is near, their wait is almost over, men fall easily now. It is like the wine has grown more potent and the beauty more irresistible. All around her there is delight and pleasure, but she wonders about the men who crave the same as her. Basically, she's starting to like be worried about kind of like the people who have the same ambition and stuff as her, typical like who's going to stab me in the back.
Right.
Those not tempted by common delights, will they in the end yield to her? Basically, she's like worried about her right-hand man, and then the other guy that her right-hand man was like, you should be worried about.
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah, the guy we saw at the beginning.
Which is weird that this is kind of brought up, because in the end, it doesn't really it doesn't end up being anything.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, okay, I could see this being used as a narrative device or plot.
Yeah.
But because it doesn't lead anywhere, I'm not 100% sure why it was brought up in the first place.
Yeah.
I really, I guess the only way I see it is to sell the mind of Kreia
Maybe.
and the corruption and stuff like that. That's really the only thing I can see.
That's really the only thing I can think of.
Because nothing comes of it.
No.
But then we cut to more action. The sisters, they like blow up a tunnel entrance and block the forces coming behind them, and they end up essentially in the area where they're ending up in the area where that temple is, that Kreia is at. Because it is eventually revealed that the temple you're talking about, it was discovered when they were looking for a new water source.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's when the corruption and stuff obviously started taking place, because they had found it, and then they started using the water from that massive cavernous pool,
which will begin to make itself apparent of like, oh, it's in the water.
Yeah. But the sisters come up and they see a massive like engraving symbol on the wall, and one of the dialogus sister translate it and says, "Here be death."
Mm-hmm.
We cut to the fiery heart, and again they are translating another letter from the acolyte saying, "What is heresy? I ask myself. Is it joy? Is it ebullience? English language. If so, it's that, again, that word salad.
It is,
40K.
yeah.
Like, who uses that fucking word?
Yeah, no.
If so, the inner city is lost. I fear the infection of elation, but I have followed its scent to an expansion development in Precinct 4. Again, we're already being aware of it as these letters are getting translated. It's kind of almost like a pin to summarize what is happening.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah.
Attached, there's like communications and stuff, and a decipher for the different like language or whatever. One is water, fire, food, death. These are like on this list of like sequences or whatever decipher. Here was, and from the letter still, here was the plague of pleasure conceived. Here was the folly of man born. We danced in the cradle of sin, and it was our downfall. For these delights are intemperate. Here be death. Heed us. Here be death. And obviously, here be death. That's the symbol on the wall that the sisters came across. It's very parallel.
Yep.
And now the Inquisitor is kind of like we need this stuff even like translated even more, like how much longer to get the rest of these letters translated. And they're like, well, it still takes time. And he's very much like, well, fucking get it done now. Like, give me the reports every half hour. And it's like, okay, all right,
Asshole.
whatever. And Oris kind of is talking to him. It's like, what do you think's down there? And Inquisitor's like, I've told you everything I know. Like, I don't know anything other than what I've told you. And he's like, I suspect everything and nothing, Canoness. The only thing I am looking for are the facts. And she's basically kind of like, well, we're sending our forces down in an hour. So am I sending my sisters to death? And he's just like, I pray not. And we cut back to the sisters' planet side, and they are moving further into this Precinct 4. They come across where the excavation and stuff is happening, where they found the temple and the new water source, and there is a massive like force presiding here.
And this is where we actually get the full confirmation of, okay, this is Slaanesh.
Yeah.
Because this force is like reinforced by demons.
Yep.
And the demons are specifically Hedonites, which are like basically like the ground troops, the infantry of Slaanesh demons.
Yeah. And they come across that the like beggar or whatever that Kreia gave the sword to.
Yeah.
And she's got like a bunch of heads in her and like barbed wire like in her hand.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like metal as fuck, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they fucking shoot a fucking hole in her arm the size of a fucking baseball.
Yeah.
And she throws the head. They start fighting back and everything, and they just fucking light her ass up. At this point, they've now revealed their position to the enemy force, and that's when you see like the Hedonites and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh yeah, we are fighting Slanesh 100%. Yeah. If there's one army, there's two armies, Chaos armies, factions that I would hate to fight, and that's fucking Nurgles and Slanesh's.
Yeah.
I would much rather have to deal with Khorne and Tzeentch than...
Well, because with Khorne, it's like, you're just going to die.
You're just going to get killed.
They're just going to kill you.
Tzeentch might fuck with your head, but
you're going to die.
You're going to die.
Fucking Slanesh, they will torture you.
Yeah.
And torture you and do unspeakable things that I can't put because of YouTube.
Yeah.
Fucking, they're going to age gate the video.
It is absolutely horrendous. And then Nurgle just
like you're going to die a slow,
painful disease
ridden death. You're going to be shitting out both ends. Like it's going to be crazy.
Bad. But that's pretty much the end of issue 3, and now we're moving into issue 4. Issue 4, I would say, is it's got a big reveal in the beginning, and then that's also a lot of combat happening.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of the narrative happens at the beginning of the issue.
And then, but again, kind of a theme happening with these issues. We're having a flashback of 3 years ago on this planet, and we finally are revealed who the Acolyte is that they've been searching for, and it is Orgrin, the right hand of Kreia.
Of course.
So
you find out that he has been corrupted, essentially.
Yeah, he in his search for the source of the corruption is how he ended up being corrupted. That whole like he was chasing and got caught. Essentially. And I think the person who is responsible is Kreia, because in this flashback, he's torturing a corrupted individual. He sets him afire, and the house starts catching fire. And you know who's outside? Fucking Kreia watching.
Oh, yeah.
So I think she's the one that corrupted him personally.
Yep, 100%.
But we are now on the Fiery Heart once again. Another letter decrypted. It says, was it our fear that humanity would reach its potential, that they would rise up, see the truth? How wrong we were. The so-called corruption is nothing of the kind. This is what humanity was meant to be. Essentially, the Inquisitor coming to the fact that his Acolyte, the reason they sent these sisters on this mission, has been corrupted.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, what was the point? What was the point of sending them?
Yeah. Like, why didn't you just fucking Terminatus them?
Not even that. Like, it's like, just fucking send the Force in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just, you're already going to send a Force in.
I think it's because because a big thing with the Inquisition is they do not want the public to know that they can be corrupted. Because they're like the secret police.
Essentially, they're like a stop.
It's like 1984. You know, it's very similar to Brother Eye, Big Brother, that kind of stuff. And they don't want it to be known that they can be corrupted. And so they want as little people as possible to know. That's also a big, I don't think you've read the trilogy yet, but that's a big thing in the Eisenhorn trilogy, is because the main character, Eisenhorn, is an Inquisitor. Yeah. And a big thing with that is like corruption, and are the Inquisitors faultless? Yeah. Are they corruptible? That kind of stuff.
I will say we've been joking about Exterminatus and stuff like that, but for the most part, like, Inquisitors are dutiful and do their due diligence.
There are corrupt. When I say corrupt, I don't mean like chaos corruption, but like just generally bad people,
like power hungry.
Yeah, there are evil Inquisitors. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but like a character like Eisenhorn, he's not. I would not consider him a bad guy.
I would say for the most part, like, they're not going to like destroy a planet on a whim.
That's not their go. That's not their go-to.
Yeah, they could, but it's generally not what they do.
Correct. Yeah.
They kind of, to harken back to what the Inquisitor in this said, is he's looking for the facts.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of Inquisitors. They do want the hard evidence. even though their fucking motto is Inquisitors, is in a sense proves nothing. But still. But yeah, so we are with the sisters, and they are gearing up for the big toe-to-toe battle. They see the Acolyte, Orgrin, or whatever. I can't say his fucking name.
It's Oregon.
Is it?
Yeah. Oregon.
And at first they're like, Inquisitor Acolyte, like, fucking come with us peacefully, and, you know, no harm will come to you or whatever. They also then realize that he's corrupted. And so at that point, they're kind of like, we're done playing nice at this point. And that's when the battle starts. Oregon does try to, like, spout some heresy stuff, and in typical sister fashion, they're like, enough with this fucking heresy. It's time to fucking die, essentially.
Yeah.
And they get into battle, and it turns out that person they shot
didn't die. Nope.
The girl with the sword.
Nope. And there is a funny joke in there where Viridian's like, how many times do I have to fucking kill you?
Yeah. Which is hilarious, considering they just brought one of their own back not too long ago.
Yeah. It's very funny. Again, I like Warhammer humor because it's very sparing when they use it. And when they use it, it just adds a little bit of brevity, and it really shows, like, humanity.
Yeah, because if it was, like, damn depressing all the fucking time,
dude.
But there is some humor, like, even playing Dark Tide.
Yeah,
the banter between your player characters,
it's funny.
Some of it's super fucking funny,
and I like Dark Tide for that, because it's like you get to see it from the perspective of, like, normal. I say normal, loosely. very loosely, but normal Imperium citizens.
Yeah,
and then, like, in Space Marine 2, there's a little bit of humor in some Space Marine 2 as well. It's
less so with Space Marines.
Yeah, it's less so, but you can still see that.
Yeah,
and it's very nice. I like it.
Yeah, I had a thought and I lost it just now. Anyway, let us continue.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Bottom line, big battle starts, essentially. Oregon basically is like, I'm going to give you a deal that your god would not give anyone else, and that is, I will let you go peacefully without harm, if you just leave. Like, if you don't attack anybody, and he tells his people only attack if they attack first. He goes back inside the temple, and he lets Kreia know about this. And the way he talks is basically, he knows they're not gonna.
No,
they're not gonna leave.
No.
And so
he's like, "You guys can leave." And then he turns around, and he's like, "We need to leave.
Yeah,
we need to get out of here."
He comes back inside and is talking to Kreia, and he's like, "Where's your guard?" And she's like, "Oh, they're at the water pumps." And it's like, fuck.
Yeah,
like, you can kind of see what's about to start.
You can see the reveal coming.
And bottom line, it's revealed the governor is now a plaything puppet of Kreia. And her big plan right now is that she's going to corrupt the entirety of the Hive City by going into the water pumps and essentially using the sprinkler system to rain the corrupted water amongst everybody. And the sisters are having battle outside, and, like, there's this big kind of, like, back and forth between Oregon and Kreia, and, like, again, a lot of that word salad stuff.
You do get the reveal that Oregon, he's not like, it's hard to explain. He's not betraying her, but he is telling her, like, I'm done following you, and, like, when this is done, like, I will be the one that's in charge.
Yeah.
That kind of deal.
He's like,
he's not outright, like, gonna kill her.
Yeah.
But I think he's under the impression of, like, the sisters will kill you.
And I will take your place.
And I will kill them, and I'll be the ruler.
I also think it's because he does say, or ask her, like, do you think you're a god?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one of those things where, like, he's served a god enough in his life. He doesn't want to serve.
Yeah, and he's smart enough to realize like I don't like there are things stronger than me.
Yeah.
So,
and then the sisters breach and
fucking nearly kill him.
nearly kills Oregon, and Kreia like leaves him there to essentially die. And it's funny because the governor's over in the corner, like trapped under rubble, except for one arm, and he's dying, and he's just chugging a big old wine.
He's like one more.
He's like one more, and it's very very Slaanesh.
Oh yeah, 100%. You can tell that he's fully gone.
Yeah, 100%. And so they capture Oregon. They knock him out because he's spouting heretical things. And if you spout heretical things, you either die or you're going to die slowly. Those are your two options.
Two options, that's it.
And so they knock him out, and they're going to bring him back to the Fiery Heart. And that's when that fucking crazy Slaanesh sword-wielding maniac shows up again, riding a Slaaneshi demon. And
Viridian she's done.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm tired of dealing with these motherfuckers.
And that's when she makes the joke, how many times do I have to kill you?
Yep.
You know? And she fucking stabs her right through the head with her power sword too. And it's very cool. Like that, like you said, the art's really good, and I think it lended itself to this world a lot and everything like that.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame that they haven't continued like with this partnership.
Yeah.
And that could, I don't know who's really at fault for that, but
I mean,
let's be honest.
Probably GW.
It could be GW, could be Marvel. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it could be both, but I'm leaning towards GW.
I am too. Look, we love the game, but it's not because of GW.
What's the saying? You're not a true Warhammer fan until you hate GW.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they basically secure their fucking package, and they're like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And they start to get the fuck out of Dodge. And as they're going, Oregon kind of regains consciousness and starts to fight back against, I believe her name is Theta.
Yeah, something like that.
The Retributor, the heavy weapon specialist.
Yep.
And it causes they ended up getting under fire by cultists.
Yep.
And the bridge that they are running across ends up exploding, and Theta and Cassia end up getting separated and falling down deeper into the Hive City, getting separated from the rest of the group.
And it's also important to know at this moment is also when the full-scale battle and war is starting on the surface of the planet.
Yes. The Fiery Heart, it lands. You see the sister Repentia come out. Yeah. Repentia superiors. You see, what are they called? Mortifier engines or penitent engines?
Penitent engines.
And mortifiers and all that kind of stuff start coming out, and it's awesome. Yeah. It's what I envision when I see a fucking Warhammer game.
Yeah.
And Viridian is like, she's trying to get a hold of her sisters who got separated. And she shoots Oregon in both his she kneecaps him. And she's like, I'm going to fucking torture you if they die.
Yeah.
And that is when it is fully revealed to us, the readers, that because Cassia reports back to Viridian saying like the corruption is in the water, because she sees a bunch of cultists like praying to the water, and they get drenched in it,
and they're like getting this manic face and everything.
Yeah.
And like, because before that, Viridian's like, where are you? I'm gonna come and get you guys and everything. And Cassia's like, don't
you leave us,
we
are done,
because they are surrounded by people.
Yeah.
And then the water drops, and that's and then that's when she's like, no, seriously, do not come here.
Yeah.
And that's the end of issue 4.
Yeah. And issue 5, it immediately picks up with just full scale combat fighting. The sisters are tearing through cultists, and it's crazy because you see cultists get their arms like fucking cut off and blown off, but still running at them.
It's so cool. Like, it's so over the top. It's so badass. It's just...
And down below, the the people are praying to the water, and the Slanesh demons start busting through and like trying to kill the sisters down there. It's this issue's like a massive,
it's the war happening essentially.
Yeah. And a really cool scene, you get to see an immolator, which is the big tank with the glass, stained glass. I own one of those. They're over there on that shelf right there. It's pretty cool.
Also a warp rift opens as well.
Yeah, fucking demons are popping through. It's awesome. It's crazy.
It's Warhammer.
Yeah. In the midst of all this fighting, Cassia does get caught in an explosion and she survives somehow. And it even says like, she keeps on fucking dying, or she keeps on falling, but somehow she lives.
Yeah.
And she actually ends up in front of the temple that Krea's in. And the narration says like, she hears it. She can hear the whispers, the singing. And it sounds like a long forgotten song, sweet and dark. And she begins to approach it. And at this time, Theta is like praying and stuff and like trying to.
And Solon, that's the one guy.
The other right hand.
Yeah, he instead of just killing her outright, they're like, we're gonna make you see the joys of being one of us.
Yeah,
and
corrupt
they're like grab the hose because they're gonna drench her in the water.
Yeah. But Cassia confronts Krea, and this part is fucking funny.
It's so fucking funny, dude.
And is essentially like, you're under arrest or whatever sisters fucking do.
I mean, like,
I don't think she's gonna arrest her. I think she's gonna fucking kill her. But
and Krea's just like, battle sister, why are you here? There's no battle here.
Yeah. And she starts to swim, and she's like, oh, you hear it too. You hear the song, and she goes underwater and begins to go towards this Slanesh idol,
like icon idol.
Yeah, it's like a relic,
and that's what's corrupting the water.
Yeah, and she starts to swim to it, and then Cassia just fucking blows her head off and kills her.
Yeah.
Very unceremonious, but it's
fucking funny.
It's funny, and it's kind of fitting.
Well, yeah, because like, I mean, it's that aspect of like Warhammer and war in general of like, some people just don't get like,
yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, 100%. But it's also funny in the way of like,
she thought she was something.
Yeah, she thought she was like this big grand figurehead, and then she gets taken out like just a normal soldier,
just like any other cultist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's just so fucking funny because I don't know why she thought that Cassia wasn't gonna do anything.
Yeah, I don't.
You know what I mean?
I think at that point she was just too far gone.
Yeah, probably.
I also forgot to mention at one point, the sister Dialogus does go back to the Fiery Heart with Oregon, because Horus. Canonus Horus and Viridian, they actually end up meeting up, and Viridian's like, I'm not going back without my sisters. And Horus is like, okay, well, we will hold the line, but we can't stay forever.
Yeah.
We'll get Oregon back to the Fiery Heart. You get Cassia and Theta and get back here. Which is nice. You see a lot of like camaraderie in that sense.
Tedra is the...
Is that
heavy?
Okay.
Tedra.
Tedra. Sorry, I've been saying her name wrong the whole time.
I probably have to. Cassia gets in contact with Tedra, or Tedra gets in contact with her, and it's like, tell them to not come to the inner city. Yeah. Do not do it.
Yeah.
And Cassia is also like, I'm not leaving you. Like, tell me where you are, and I'm gonna come and get you. And she's basically like, nah, like, don't.
Yeah,
like,
she says, no, Sister Cassia, I am lost. And you see her shoot this like canister above her, and you see like water falling on top of her. And this is because you were sitting in here when I said this is where I was like, oh, that's kind of badass. I can't wait to talk about this. And the cultists corner her, and they're essentially like, oh, see, sister, like, this is what it's like to be one of us. And they're like, now you get to die. And they start to shoot around her. Or no, they're
flashing their lights on.
Yeah, they're flashing her lights. And then they're staring at her, and she goes, this is not water. And then she shoots her gun at the ground. and it lights the ground and her on fire.
And she just stands there. She
takes
it like a fucking G.
And I will say, at this point, they're in a factory. She actually leads them to like a promethium like factory
where they are quote unquote stockpiling.
Correct.
Promethium.
And the whole fucking thing just explodes. The whole underground like structure just fucking explodes. Yeah, is engulfed in
whole
flames.
Hive city essentially.
It's gone. Yeah.
I will mention that moment when she's like, "This is not water," and she shoots it and sets it on fire. The narration says she prays she has earned a place in his light, and that he will bless the fire.
Yeah.
And that's when you're seeing everything start to explode and stuff. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's great.
That's so fucking bad.
It's really cool. I think that was my favorite moment in the entire comic. It was really good.
My favorite moment was definitely when that cultist was like doing a spiel.
Yeah.
And she just blows this splits his wig.
It's at this point that like Viridian is like, we can't wait any longer. They have to go back. And as they're retreating, they actually find they find Cassia.
Yeah.
Who's somehow made it out.
She just has the luck.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah, she like crawled her way out of the fucking explosion and is covered in debris and dust. Like, holy shit, dude, how the fuck did you survive? And all the while, there's a conversation between Ander and Oregon as well, where Oregon is doing the classic, like, you follow a false god, you follow the false emperor, you think his light will protect you, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he's like, do you think you can truly, shield? Or he says something along the lines of like control humanity.
This is what humanity was meant to be.
Yeah.
And Ander's like, your heretical postulations mean nothing. Oregon, we do not seek to change humanity. We only protect it.
Yeah, that's...
And when he says it,
he kills him.
Throughout this story, Andrew's been like an afterthought to me.
Yeah, but it was a badass line.
But that line right there, I'm like, that goes hard, 100%.
And then we get a closing narration of basically the end of the story, where it says, prayers of gratitude flow over the battlefield, but only a moment. The battle's over, but the war goes on. Mm-hmm. And it shows Viridian, Cassia, and Gita going back to the Fiery Heart as the only survivors of the mission.
Fun note, we glossed over because she's not really an important character, but I do think this lends itself to a level of continuity. Mm-hmm. When they do the flashback for Balta, one of the reasons they were in the mess that they were was at the time that canoness Selene had caused them to end up in the situation they were in. When they talk about the Sisters of Repentia, she's the bald one that's in the front of the group. Mm-hmm. They talk about how the Sisters of Repentia, they're there to repent for failed deeds or whatever. And it's her, Selene. In this very last panel, there's a dead Sister of Repentia. It's Selene. Yeah. And therefore, in her death, she has finally repented for her mistakes. Yep. I really like that level of continuity through it.
I will say, we then go... When the story ends, we get one final page. It's called The Black Altar, and it shows the symbol of corn, and we have a bunch of like little screens that says files incomplete, all that kind of stuff. But then we see Rapture's Whisper, which is the icon that was causing the corruption, and we find out that it actually was not destroyed, it was recovered.
Yep.
And it's being kept in a secret vault, because the Ecclesiarchy will recover like chaos artifacts that they deem too powerful, and will put them under some type of protection. A good one is I believe it's called the Blade of Antwe, which is the sword that is wielded by a Grey Knight known as Castellan Crow.
Yeah, the one that whispers.
Yeah, he is one of the most powerful Grey Knights in the Order. And he's the only one who can wield the sword because it cannot corrupt him. Yeah. So they will do certain things like that. there are other characters that have crazy shit.
See, this page makes me think that they had plans for a lot more stories.
Oh yeah,
I have a feeling the Marnius Calgar one will also play into that.
probably.
But this looks, with all the files incomplete like sections, it made me feel like, oh, they're gonna have a bunch of these like situations where there's like artifacts or corruption,
and it all comes together.
and it all comes together to one final like run or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if they abandoned those plans. They must have, because I mean these came out in 2021, and I don't think there's any else.
No.
So those plans definitely didn't come to fruition. I don't know if that was the plan in the first place, but that's what it seems like.
Yeah. But that's the end of the story.
Yeah. The ending's definitely like a let's wrap this shit up,
let's wrap it up.
You know.
But overall, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's a fun story. I will say it is also there's a good amount of stuff that we kind of glossed over just because, like we've already said, Warhammer's got that word salad thing going on where it's like sometimes the interactions between these characters, like it's not really important to the plot or the narrative, but it does lend to like their characterization because like, you know, a lot of the dialogue between the sisters is like, I love the Emperor, you love the Emperor, we love the Emperor, you know? And then Krea's is like, why do we love the Emperor? We should love everything. And you know what I mean? Like it's not really important to the narrative, but it's important in their characterization of what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just thinking the Imperium just constantly jacking off to the fucking Emperor.
God.
You know?
But yeah, super fun story. I highly recommend it. It's nothing that you have to invest a lot of time into.
Yeah, if you want to dip your toe into the Warhammer stuff, if you're new, I think this would be a good introduction to it.
If you just want something simple.
Yeah.
I am very excited to see how this episode does when we upload it. If it is popular and people like it and want more of it, I am not opposed to doing more Warhammer stuff.
Yeah.
We have definitely talked about covering Warhammer on the podcast before. Outside of the podcast, we have talked endlessly about covering Warhammer, and just in our own time, just talking about Warhammer. If this does well and, you know, people really like it, I am not opposed to covering the Black Library books as well.
Yeah. That'd take a little bit of different structuring.
It would definitely need to. It would be a lot of paraphrasing on what happens in a chapter
100%.
Instead of going into detail.
I don't even know if it'd be a chapter by chapter situation. I think it'd be more like
chunks
of just like, this is what was happening. And it might even just be a general, like, let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Instead of going through it each. Yeah. I can definitely see that. And We'll test it.
Yeah.
I have no oppositions to covering Warhammer. I think it's a setting that everyone can get into. It has something for everyone. It has horror, it has fantasy, it has action, science fiction. Yeah, science fiction. It's got all the bells and whistles that you know people like. And I really appreciate everybody who listened this far. I know Warhammer is completely different from what we've normally covered.
Yeah, and we could honestly sit here and talk about Warhammer forever.
Yeah, we could go another hour, 2 hours talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, if you guys really enjoyed the episode, you know, like the video, comment what you liked about it. If you thought we could have done something better, comment that too. I always love hearing feedback from people. And if you haven't already, you know, if you think we earned it, go ahead, give us a little subscribe, you know,
hit
the little bell so that way you know when we upload. And there's not a whole lot I really have to say about this.
It was fun.
It was fun.
I enjoyed it.
Read it. You can pick it up in trade. You can read it on the Marvel Unlimited app. You can get the single issues if you want to hunt those down as well.
Yeah, reading this makes me excited to read the Calgar one.
Yeah, we will eventually do.
Yeah, it's always a good time.
It's always in
the grim darkness of 40K.
Yep. All right. My mouth is sore from talking.
Yeah.
You want to outro us?
Sure. Yeah, I can. This has been Comics with Friends. I mean, we've pretty much already outroed ourselves. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, month, day, night, whatever it may be, and we'll see you next time. But most importantly, remember that only in death does duty end. Bye-bye.
Bye.